Kate or Andrew. Thank you.
Recording. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay.
Okay,
So could we-
roll call
could we,
vote.
Thank you.
Mayor Kokoris,
Here.
Mr. O'Mara,
Here.
Mr. Alexopoulos.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Naughton. And first item on the agenda is the Tri-Town Treatment Plant updates. And we're looking at an update which gives us the 30% design review. And I believe Ms. Gordon is going to speak on that. You have to unmute her, though.
Sorry, oh, there we go.
I talk with my hands, so usually people can kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, board members. It's good to see everybody. I hope everybody and their families are doing well during this time period. Good to see you back, Mayor. So 30% design review. We've completed our review as the OPM. We have a number of items to finalize before we obtain an updated cost estimate on the 30% design. To date, what we've done is we've done the review. We've looked from all our discipline perspectives. Yesterday, we had a meeting with your work team, and your work team consists of Jim Arsenault, Lou Dutton, and we also had, for the first time, John Thompson was on the call as well. Welcome, John. And we also had Keith Nastasia and Chris Pelletieri. And we gathered information and comments on the 30% design from their review. So we had sent the design review plans to everybody to look at and comment on. We've coalesced that information, and tomorrow we have a 4-hour meeting with AECom where your work group has been invited and can attend if possible. And we will be going over the 3 major questions that we have and design specifics that we want clarified prior to the finalization of the 30% design. During that time, we'll be discussing some critical decisions that need to be made and may require additional information to be provided by AECom before we can finalize those decisions. And they're decisions around the layout of the treatment facility, and some comments that came up from your work group. And so we want to make sure that those things are finalized and set in stone on the 30% design so we can really move forward quickly with the next phases. And so that's where we are in terms of the project and next steps. We are running 2 weeks behind on the 30% design right now. We're going to be able to pick up the time schedule in the next phase. This is the most critical period of time in the design, and I'd rather spend a few extra weeks on this end of the project and we'll be able to, as I said, catch up on the design on the 60% and further. So I'm not concerned on the overall budget. Let's spend the time now to make the decisions we need to make and move on. So that's the summary of the 30% design. I certainly get into gory details if the board members would like us to do so.
Thank you. Is anyone from the board would like to ask any questions or make any comments? Hearing none, move on to item 2, vote to amend Mass DEP pilot recertification.
Right. So just setting the table on the background of this, and I did send along a review memo to the board members. We had submitted a while back as part of our role and responsibility what we called a recertification requirement for the pilot plant study. The pilot plant study for the treatment plant was conducted in 2014, and when the project got back on schedule in terms of moving forward with the design, we had submitted the recertification request to Mass DEP. As part of their acceptance of the 2014 pilot plant study, they are requiring a bench scale testing for the PFAS treatment only. And this is because PFAS wasn't an issue in 2014. It wasn't being tracked then. And you were well below the limits that had been measured for at that point in time. There was one analysis that had to be done in 2016 with what they call a UCMR3, and you were below this, well below the 70 parts per trillion. So fast forward, we had to do water quality testing. We came up with numbers slightly above the 20 PPT, which is going to be the new level that Mass DEP is going to set for the maximum contaminant level. And as a backdrop to that, Mass DEP is saying, okay, we're going to accept the pilot plant. We're not going to require you to do another pilot plant, which could push the project back almost a year, and then also increase costs around 200,000-ish. However, with that, we want you to do this column testing. And this particular bench scale testing is clearly not in the contract scope of work that AECOM had. So we had a conversation with them about the scope and a budget. They presented a scope and a budget, and that budget initially, before we started negotiations, was at 66,000 plus or minus a few hundred. And we negotiated it down to 48,500 with a scope that's been accepted by Mass DEP. And we're here today to ask and request for a vote from the board to add this amendment to AECOM's scope of services so we can get this started right away so we can continue to move the project forward. I did provide a summary of what our opinion of construction cost was for the overall project and what the funds had been appropriated by the three communities. So the current contracted amount for engineering services for AECOM and environmental partners combined is $4,085,200. And that, with that dollar amount, there was a cushion of $548,607 on the engineering services based on what you had appropriated. So there's a $500,000 plus or minus plus cushion. And with this $48,500 additional cost, the cushion is just reduced to a $500,000, $107 cushion. So we're still well within what your budgeted overall appropriations are for this project. And we're, at the same time, we also submitted, the Mass DEP has a grant program that they started. We submitted a request for the grant program for up to $200,000 potentially for Tri-Town for reimbursement on expenditures for this project for the PFAS work. So that would be a grant that we hadn't expected. So that would be a net positive potential of $200,000. We should be hearing on that in the next. Sarah I know you're on mute.
End of August.
Thanks. Do you know when we might be hearing about the grant?
In the announcement, it said end of August.
Okay,
but,
thank you.
It may be later, depending.
Okay, thank you. So that's where we are on the amendment and why we're requesting the vote today.
Okay. Any of the members have any questions or comments?
So Helen, what did you say the grant was for?
The grant is so the state has a grant program right now, and this is the second occurrence of that grant program. And what they're doing is they're providing grant funds to communities who have to deal with PFAS now that they're ratcheting down the limit to 20 PPT. And that is a reimbursement program. So if you spent money already on study and design of PFAS,
Yep.
It does not include testing, but it includes study and design. So this column testing is more in lines with the design piece. And it would be funding for the design piece that AECOM is producing on the plans for the treatment process. So they will appropriate up to $200,000 for a community. It is a process that you had to submit and give your reasoning why you should be a priority community. You have your points as a Tri-Town community are higher than some individual communities because it's a regional facility. There's also some allocation towards environmental justice communities, which is Randolph as part of the regional and so forth. So we think you have a good shot on this grant. Obviously, we cannot guarantee that you're going to get it. So as soon as we find out about that, we'll certainly let you know.
Okay, thank you, Helen.
Yep.
Mr. Arsenault, do you have any comments on this?
No, I think that, given the situation, how it's the concerns that rose kind of without expectation, it probably is something like that's kind of an outlier. So I can understand where it's coming from. I did have concerns, and I raised them to her in past discussions, and I think I understand better that it is something that's warranted and we need to address. So.
Okay. So you feel comfortable on the Braintree side?
Yeah.
Okay. And Helen, again, what was the motion that you were looking for specifically?
So the motion we're looking for is for the Tri-Town board members to vote to amend AECOM's contract in the additional amount of $48,500 for the bench scale testing for PFAS media design.
Okay, so that is the motion. Does someone want to move that motion?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mayor Kokoris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Mara,
Aye.
Mr. Alexopoulos,
Yes.
Okay, that passes 3-0. And next we have a vote to change water restriction. Now, what I'll do is I'll read the motion, and I will read the different phases and when they would be implemented under the new guidelines. As it stands right now, we are in phase 1. We've always been in phase 1, even at full capacity. And right now, at last check, we had about 96% capacity, which under today's rules would have us in phase 1. So I'm going to read what the motion says, and then I'll go through each. In the motion is each phase and when the phase would kick in under the new guidelines. So the motion is that the Tri-Town Board authorize the use of water sprinklers and soaker hoses and prohibit the use of water irrigation systems until such a time as a reservoir capacity falls below 85%. And further modify the existing water use restrictions as follows. Phase 1, when the reservoirs are below 85% full, the use of all automatic watering devices and soaker hoses is prohibited. Only the use of handheld hoses with a shutoff nozzle shall be allowed. This phase is in effect at times when further restrictions are not required. Phase 2, when reservoirs are below 70%, it also includes the restrictions in phase 1 and further restricts. Restrictions shall be implemented as follows. Outside water use is restricted to the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And phase 3, which includes phase 2, when reservoirs are below 60% full with incoming water, a further restriction shall be implemented as follows. Outside watering of phase 2, the hours would be reduced to 6 p.m. through 9 p.m. only. And phase 4, when the reservoirs are below 60% with no incoming water, a further restriction shall be implemented as follows. There shall be no outside use of water. And then, God forbid, phase 5, when reservoirs are between 50% and 40% full, all outside watering shall be prohibited, as in phase 4, and all use of non-essential water is prohibited. So that is the that would be the new water restriction use table, so to speak. And if someone does make a motion on it, they would just have to make a motion as read by the chair. And at this point, if anyone wants to make a motion or has any comments, this would be a good opportunity if anyone has any comments.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
When this gets instituted, and I'm certainly not opposed to it. I think, the data shows that, and I think even just today I was having a conversation with a couple of residents how we haven't gone below 1 in a number of years. But I know both Holbrook and Randolph are going to be doing quite a bit of flushing. We're doing a complete unidirectional program. I think Holbrook may not be necessarily doing it to that degree. Is it something where we could still, like in the case of Randolph residents, I don't have any objections for Braintree certainly to try and use more water. But for us internally, could we still have a different messaging for our residents right now? Because we're going to be going into September and doing a flushing program that my understanding is pretty significant as far as the amount of water and the pressure hit that might go with that. So I don't know, what Helen's thoughts may be, or Keith's thoughts may be, or Billy's. But that's just something for me. My top priority is we're catching up on our flushing program here. And, in a year or two, once we're done, because it's a multi-year program, then I'd be more likely for Randolph residents to say, hey, go ahead, water those lawns. But for me, I'm going to need that water for the flushing program. So just, I don't know if Keith or Billy have any thoughts, certainly Helen. As long as we can personalize it to Randolph, that would be helpful. I just want to see where everybody stands on that.
Well, I think, I think that's kind, first of all, to Braintree, thank you. That, that you'd be willing to further restrict water within those communities if that's what you want to do. I think that, we've done a lot with COVID in getting the information out to people about
Yep.
different things. So I think there's a lot better communication at this point. And I know we do flushing programs as well, but I will say that when we get to that point, obviously when we get to 85%, then it really doesn't matter what town we're going to have to go into phase one. But I will say that it could be something that you just do a press release on that explains we're doing a flushing program. So we ask you at this time to remain in phase one. I think it's a situation where, because we share this water source, when it gets to that number, it gets to that number, and we're all going to be in it together. So I think that, I know we do flushing constantly. I don't know what the volume is compared to what you're going to be doing as far as your flushing program. But I mean, obviously, if you wanted to put some sort of message out on Nextdoor or some other social media, or even within this press release, I'm sure that the press is listening, and they probably could convey that if that's what you wish, or you and your members wish to do.
Yeah, because I think for Randolph, we've done some non-unidirectional, but my understanding is this program that we're about to kick off, because we haven't done a unidirectional in so long, that some of the length of time and the amount of hydrants and how long they're going to be left open is much longer than if we were just doing traditional flushing. So that's the only reason I bring that issue up. If we were just doing traditional flushing during the traditional times of the year, I wouldn't be even batting an eye on it.
And
As
this
far
is
as the Randolph side.
and you said it's going to mainly be impacted when, in September?
Yeah, for us, we're not going to begin the program at least until September, because we do not certainly want to do any during the summer months, because we know just demand being what it is. In addition to that, we're also having all of the gates and valves and hydrants in that program tested, so that once we begin, we don't have to stop and wait for something to get fixed. We're testing it all now, so we can hit the ground running come September.
That's great. Lou, can I just ask you, what's the usage that we see around that time of year? Do you see any issues in regards to if they're doing an advanced flushing program? Do you think our consumption goes down, or what's your thoughts on it?
Usually in September, usually at the end of September, somewhere on there is when you start seeing a decline in water usage. As it's going to start getting cooler. People aren't going to use as much water. The watering of the lawns and stuff, ceases. So that's actually the best time to actually do flushing, is at that point, or in the spring. I don't see it being that big of an impact at that time of year. But then again, I can't say, because I don't know where we're going to be from now until September. However, right now, the way that we're going, I don't see it to be a big issue at all.
Mr. Alexopoulos, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't see it as a big issue, because we're talking about water consumption in the summertime. And if we're doing flushing in September or in the fall, we're not as dependent on the water at that particular time of year. So I don't think that it would be a huge issue. And then again, it's a total of the whole system. So if the whole system is down, then none of the communities are going to be able to use sprinklers as well. So try it. We have nothing to lose.
Great. Anyone else have any more comments?
If you give me you discuss something else, just give me 1 second. I'm just looking for see if I can get a number here to give you an idea of where we are. Let me see. Is this it?
Well, I can't wait until we can meet in person again, you know? It's,
Well, it's one of those things where part of me loves the Zoom process because of the
Yeah.
convenience. But then there is that meeting in person that also, that human interaction and contact too. So it's one of those, I could see the governor changing the law after this to give us some flexibility.
yeah,
Maybe do like every other meeting, one by Zoom, one by, because, you hit the button and you go right back to work, and Randolph, Billy can go right back to work,
yeah.
So there are certainly advantages.
Yeah.
I think I got it. Okay, so my trusty calculator. 45 million gallons of water is what the town of Braintree used the last time we flushed. And, as you said, we've been in phase one for the last 3 years, so that 45 million gallons didn't do much of anything.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Yep.
And I think overall, we've had discussions on this. Lou and I have had discussions, and it just seems that, we've had capacity of water that's gone unused, unfortunately, for a number of years. And this gives us an opportunity to allow folks to use sprinklers again and not have to worry about, getting in trouble or having someone drive by the house and put a sticker on their door or something. So it's a real positive move, and I support it wholeheartedly and looking forward to it. So there's no more discussion.
So-
Take a vote.
Could I add something?
Yep. Oh,
Actually,
sure.
for the town of Randolph?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. The big concern, because there's 2 different treatment plants right now, and, the confidence in Braintree's level is, par none. It's the operators, with the joint water. The concerns with DEP is that them being able to keep up with the additional demand, with dosage and whatnot. That's the big concern for the Randolph and Holbrook Joint Water Works. So as far as the outside watering, we're all for it, but the concerns are with operators able to keep up with the demand.
Thank you.
That's all I
Is there
wanted to add.
Yeah, may I?
Yes.
And the time to implement this, would it be effective immediately
Yes.
on passage?
Any further discussion?
Very quick point. At the last meeting, I know it was discussed that this will change when the Ricciardi would get opened and water would go into the lower and upper. Can somebody just explain that process to me again? I just remember we had a conversation about it at the last meeting. The only reason I ask is that in Randolph, when you go up Oak Street, in those few years that we've had some low water and people see dirt all the way up to the big rock, it concerns folks. But if we're going to be backing in water faster through the Ricciardi and that visual's not present, I'd be curious what role that would play. That's all. Lou would probably have the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Dustin.
Right now, what we've been doing is in the past, and it was one of those unwritten rules that once the upper reservoir gets down to about 6 feet, start Ricciardi. At that point, when that reservoir gets that low and you start up Ricciardi, basically what you're doing is you're draining Ricciardi. There's really not a lot of incoming water coming in, so you're not replenishing anything. So what we've done since Jim has got here is he allowed me to change the management of the reservoir system so that now, as soon as that reservoir is able to take water, we start transferring it right in. And that way we still get a lot of water coming in from the Farm River, and we take in a lot of water. And it strengthens our position, as of right now, we're only a foot down in Ricciardi. We're 6 inches down at the upper reservoir, 4 inches down on the lower reservoir. So we're in extremely good shape.
Excellent.
And, you know, as long as we keep that up and, you know, we manage the reservoirs appropriately, there shouldn't be an issue unless we really get heat like you would imagine with no rain. But so far, you know, knock on wood, we've had a really decent summer.
Hey, could you unmute Chris Pelletieri? He would like to just make a quick comment.
I think I'm
Every
good, Helen.
time I unmute it, it goes,
Yep.
oh.
There you
Yeah,
go.
no, I put myself on mute. I just want to make sure I could jump in case I had to. Sorry about that.
Go ahead. You're all set. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was, I'm sorry.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's take a vote. Roll call.
Mayor Kokoris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Mara,
Aye.
Mr. Alexopoulos,
Yes.
Okay. That passes by a vote of 3-0. And next item is future meeting dates. What we'll do is we'll look at what we have coming up as far as with design and so any other issues that might be coming up. And, oh, I jumped right over Mark Cusack. Sorry, Mark Cusack, the update on special legislation. I spoke with Representative Cusack, and we put an asterisk there because we weren't sure if he was going to be in session, and they're very busy right now. Even though it's summertime, got a lot of things going on over there, so he was unable to attend. He's in the middle of session, so we'll hear from him maybe at the next time we meet. He did say that things were moving forward, so that's a good sign. So next item is future meeting dates, and as I said, we'll work with Helen and we'll look at what would be a good time to meet again and if there's any issues that come up. And I don't think there's anything other than that, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion's made. Is there a second? Second, okay. Roll call vote.
Mayor Kokoris,
Aye.
Mr. O'Mara,
Aye.
Mr. Alexopoulos.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the nice weather. It's nice and sunny out there. Let's get those sprinkles going, right?
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.